On a stormy night in Calabar, the respected union leader Mr. Okon is found murdered in his hospital bed, throwing St. Margaret's Hospital into chaos. Dr. Amara, a dedicated physician, and Detective Kwame, a relentless investigator, must race against time to uncover the killer. As secrets unravel and suspects emerge, the hospital becomes a tense battleground. Amidst the relentless storm, the urgency to catch the murderer grows more desperate. Will they solve the mystery before it's too late? Once upon a time, in the lively city of Calabar, Nigeria, a city known for its vibrant culture, rich history, and lively streets. But tonight, the city was anything but lively. A relentless rainstorm had struck, turning roads into rivers and plunging the town into a state of chaos. St. Margaret's Hospital, perched on a hill overlooking the city, was the only beacon of hope for many seeking refuge from the storm. Dr. Amara, a dedicated and skilled physician, was working the night shift. Her calm appearance contradicted the exhaustion she felt after hours of treating patients injured in the storm. The emergency room was a hive of activity, filled with the cries of the wounded and the frantic efforts of the medical staff. Amara moved from patient to patient with a practiced ease, her white coat flapping as she hurried down the corridors. Her sharp eyes missed nothing, and her steady hands worked miracles, stitching wounds and setting broken bones. She had seen it all in her years at St. Margaret's, but tonight felt different. There was an air of unease that she couldn't quite shake. The rain pounded on the windows like a relentless drumbeat, creating an almost oppressive atmosphere. Nurses and doctors moved quickly, their faces etched with determination and fatigue. Amara paused for a moment, taking a deep breath, and then continued her rounds. She knew that the storm would bring in more casualties, and she had to be ready for anything. Just as she finished bandaging a young boy's arm, the doors to the emergency room burst open. A tall man, drenched from the rain and carrying a woman in his arms, rushed in. The man was Detective Kwame, a well-known figure in Calabar for his keen investigative mind and unyielding sense of justice. The woman he carried was Serene, his close friend, who had been in a serious car accident caused by the storm. "Doctor, please help her." Kwame's voice was filled with urgency and worry. Amara quickly assessed the situation. "Bring her here," she said, guiding him to an empty bed. She worked swiftly, her hands moving with precision as she checked Serene's vitals and ordered the necessary tests. Kwame watched anxiously, his usually calm demeanor replaced by a rare display of emotion. He trusted Amara. She had a reputation for being one of the best doctors in the city. As Amara worked, he couldn't help but be impressed by her focus and skill. Just as Amara fought to save Serene, another drama unfolded. A powerful figure, the leader of the workers' union, was admitted with a seemingly minor injury. However, moments later, chaos erupted when he was found murdered in his bed. The sight of Mr. Okon's body sent shockwaves through the hospital. He was a key figure in the community, a man whose influence extended far and wide. His murder, especially on such a chaotic night, threatened to unleash a storm of its own. Kwame's detective instincts kicked in. He knew that if the murderer wasn't caught quickly, they could easily slip away in the chaos of the storm. Turning to Amara, he saw the determination in her eyes that matched his own. They would need to work together to solve this mystery before dawn. The hospital plunged into panic. Staff and patients alike were thrown into disarray. Amara, caught between her duty to her patients and the shock of the murder, found herself drawn into a new and dangerous challenge. "Kwame, we have a situation," Amara whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "The union leader, he's been murdered." Kwame's expression hardened. "I need to secure the area and start an investigation immediately. Can you help me?" Amara nodded, her determination matching his. "I'll do whatever I can." Kwame gathered the hospital staff and patients, questioning them one by one. The storm outside reflected the confusion within, and amidst the chaos, an unlikely connection sparked between Amara and Kwame. Drawn together by their shared sense of urgency and a flicker of something deeper, they found solace in each other's resilience. The first person Kwame questioned was the head nurse, a woman in her 50s with a stern demeanor. Who had access to Mr. Okon's room? Kwame asked. Only a few of us, she replied nervously. But anyone could have slipped in during the chaos. Kwame's mind raced with possibilities. Did you notice anything unusual? The nurse hesitated. Well, there was an argument earlier. One of the doctors, Dr. Adisa, was seen arguing with Mr. Okon. Kwame's eyes narrowed. Where's Dr. Adisa now? He's in his office, I believe, the nurse replied, glancing nervously at Amara. Kwame and Amara exchanged a look before heading towards Dr. Adisa's office. The rain outside was relentless, a constant backdrop to their tense investigation. As they approached the office, they heard raised voices. Kwame signaled for Amara to stay back as he entered the room. Dr. Adisa. Kwame called out. The doctor looked up, startled. He was a tall man in his late 40s, with sharp features and a stern expression. Yes, detective. What can I do for you? We need to ask you a few questions about Mr. Okon, Kwame said, his tone measured but firm. We heard you had an argument with him earlier. Dr. Adisa's eyes flickered with something unreadable. Yes, we did have a disagreement. But it was nothing serious. Kwame leaned forward, his gaze intense. What was the argument about? Dr. Adisa sighed, rubbing his temples. Mr. Okon was planning some changes in the union that I didn't agree with. We had a heated discussion, but I would never harm him. Kwame studied Dr. Adisa's face, looking for any sign of deceit. Where were you when he was murdered? I was here, in my office, Dr. Adisa replied, his voice steady. I have several colleagues who can vouch for me. Kwame nodded, making a mental note to verify Dr. Adisa's alibi. Thank you, doctor. That will be all for now. As they left the office, Amara turned to Kwame. Do you think he's telling the truth? Kwame shrugged. It's hard to say. We need to follow every lead. Kwame and Amara formed an uneasy alliance, working together to solve the murder. They began interviewing staff and patients, uncovering a web of secrets and motives. Each interview peeled back a layer, exposing simmering tensions and hidden agendas. A nurse was seen leaving Mr. Okon's room just before the murder was discovered. As they dug deeper, they uncovered simmering tensions within the workers' union and among the hospital staff. Thank you for being here, Amara said softly during a brief moment of respite. I don't know if I could handle this alone. Kwame gave her a small, reassuring smile. We're in this together. The next person they interviewed was the nurse who had been seen leaving Mr. Okon's room. Her name was Nurse Ada, and she looked visibly shaken as she sat down. Nurse Ada, can you tell us what you saw tonight? Kwame asked gently. I went to check on Mr. Akin, she stammered. He seemed fine at first, but then he started gasping for air. I ran to get help, but by the time I returned, it was too late. Kwame nodded, his expression thoughtful. Did you notice anything unusual in the room? Nurse Ada shook her head. No, everything looked normal. But I did see someone outside the room. A man. I couldn't see his face clearly, but he was wearing a black jacket. Kwame's eyes widened. Did you recognize him at all? No, it was too dark, she replied, her voice trembling. But I know it wasn't one of the hospital staff. I've never seen him before. Kwame exchanged a glance with Amara. Thank you, Nurse Ada. You've been very helpful. As they continued their investigation, they uncovered more secrets. A junior doctor had a gambling problem and was in debt to some unsavory characters. Another nurse had a history of theft. The list of potential suspects grew longer, but none of them seemed to have a clear motive for killing Mr. Okon. Just as they were starting to feel overwhelmed, a crucial detail emerged. Kwame was reviewing the hospital security footage when he noticed something unusual. He zoomed in on a group of staff members huddled together, their faces tense and secretive. One of them discreetly glanced at their phone before quickly putting it away. Kwame's intuition kicked in. Amara, I think we need to check the staff members' phones for any unusual activity, he suggested. There might be something we're missing. Amara agreed, and they gathered the hospital staff in the break room, explaining the importance of the investigation. Despite their reluctance, the staff members handed over their phones, understanding the gravity of the situation. Kwame and Amara began the painstaking task of reviewing the messages and bank alerts on each device. The tension in the room was palpable as they went through the phones one by one. After several minutes, Kwame's eyes widened. Amara, look at this, he whispered, showing her a phone with a recent bank alert. A large sum of money was deposited into this account just yesterday. The phone belonged to Nurse Ada. She looked up, her face pale. I can explain, she stammered. Kwame's voice was calm but firm. Please do. Nurse Ada took a deep breath. It was a bribe. I didn't want to do it, but the money was too much to refuse. The strange wife of Mr. Okon approached me. She wanted to stop him from marrying a second wife and to be the sole beneficiary of his estate. Amara's eyes widened in shock. Why didn't you come forward earlier? I was scared, Nurse Ada admitted, tears streaming down her face. I never thought it would go this far. Kwame's expression hardened. Who else is involved? Nurse Ada hesitated, then spoke. Dr. Adisa. He helped me. He was promised a share of the money. Kwame and Amara exchanged a glance. We need to confront him, Kwame said. In a dramatic showdown, Kwame and Amara confronted Dr. Adisa in his office. Under the pressure of their questioning and the approaching dawn, he broke down and confessed. It was all her idea, Dr. Adisa admitted, his voice shaking. She was desperate to stop him from marrying again and wanted all his assets. She paid us to make sure it happened. The confession sent shockwaves through the hospital. Amara, though shaken, remained composed as Kwame led the suspects away to be taken into custody. The rain continued to pour, but inside the hospital, the tension began to lift. Why would she do this? Amara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Greed, jealousy, fear, Kwame replied. People are capable of terrible things when they're desperate. In a tense, high-stakes operation, Kwame and his fellow officers raced to apprehend the estranged wife. They found her attempting to leave the city, her bags packed and a plane ticket in hand. You're under arrest, Kwame said, his voice firm. For conspiracy to commit murder. The hospital staff and patients slowly began to heal from the traumatic night. The news of the estranged wife's arrest spread quickly, and the community breathed a sigh of relief knowing justice had been served. Amara and Kwame, standing together in the early morning light, looked out over the city of Calabar. The promise of a brighter, corruption-free future seemed within reach. Thank you, Kwame, Amara said, her voice filled with gratitude. Kwame took her hand, squeezing it gently. We made it through the long night. Together. In the end, the long night was a tale of resilience, unexpected alliances, and the relentless pursuit of justice, all set against the backdrop of a storm that tested the limits of endurance and courage. The end. Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and loved ones. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more interesting and captivating stories like this one and hit the bell icon so that you never miss any update. We love to hear your thoughts about the story in the comment below. Thanks again for watching.